plan of survivability. That's how we can fight and win a nuclear war.
How long must you stay in this hole?
See, you can't. Let me drop a bomb on a city so you know how ridiculous that is. Can I? A 20 megaton bomb, I'm dropping it right here on the studio, is equivalent to 20 million tons of TNT, or 4 times the collective energy of all the bombs dropped during the Second World War. It explodes with the heat of the sun. It digs a hole 3/4 of a mile wide and 800 feet deep, converting all the people, the buildings and the earth below to radioactive fallout going up in that mushroom cloud. To a radius of 6 miles from the centre, every building is totally flattened, every person killed, many of them actually are vaporised because we turn into gas when we're exposed to the heat of the sun. To 20 miles away, every person is killed or lethally injured. People are sucked out of buildings and turned into missiles travelling at 100 miles an hour. The overpressures rupture the lungs, they rupture the eardrums, eyes melt as they're upturned to the blast. Windows popcorn, fracturing into millions of shards of flying glass, producing decapitations, hemorrhages. Hundreds of thousands of the severely burnt patients. It takes us 6 months to treat a burnt patient, and often then they still die. There are only 1,000 acute burn beds in the whole country. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of patients burnt, irradiated, lacerated, fractures, trapped under rafters and beams in incredible pain, never seeing a doctor.
And no way of caring for them.
No, and dying by themselves without their families in shocking pain.
And what happens in these so-called fallout shelters?
Well, yeah, okay. Then there'll be a fire, 1,500 to 3,000 square miles, enveloping that area in a holocaust. And the fire literally sucks the oxygen out of the shelter if you're in one, and you're asphyxiated from lack of oxygen, and the blast and heat turn the fallout shelters to crematoria. That's one bomb. The Russians have 7,500 bombs. There are only about 2,000 towns and cities of any significance in this country. Every industrial area, military facility, airport, oil refinery, nuclear reactor is targeted with at least one bomb. New York City has probably 64 hydrogen bombs targeted on it alone because there's such a redundancy of weapons. We think in 30 days after a nuclear war, up to 90% of Americans could be dead. Those who survive have to stay in their shelters for 6 weeks. When they come out, there'll be nothing. Everything we've known and loved will be gone, and there'll be millions of rotting corpses, animal and human. And as they rot, the insects will multiply in their trillions as the birds killed by the fallout, and they normally eat the insects. They'll transmit disease from the dead corpses to the few living people, black plague, rabies, typhoid, poliomyelitis. Much of the ozone will be destroyed, so the ultraviolet radiation getting in from the sun will blind most unprotected eyes on the planet, even in the southern hemisphere, people, animals and insects alike. We're not sure what will happen. There could be another ice age induced. All these effects combined together, and many others I haven't mentioned, could in fact turn this planet into Mars.
Good night. I don't know what to follow that with.
And you know, we've only got about 2 years to turn it round.
Should we all know what to do in case one hits?
There's nothing you
Can I tell you what they plan to do for Los Angeles? Do you know what our plan here is? The odd-numbered license plates leave town first, and then the even-numbered license plates
There'll be
leave
a lot of
town.
cheating, I'm sure.
Oh, sure.
Some people
That's
get in
what our
line
government has
without the right
decided.
license plate, and then they have to have the police to take them out of that line because they're not supposed to be there that day.
Odd number license plate.
And you have to take your credit cards, bank books, insurance policy and wills. And you're not allowed to take alcohol or drugs, which is what one of our doctors said he thought he actually might like to take,
Yes.
as he's about to be vaporized in his car on the highway.
Yeah.
I mean,
Doesn't this come from the fact that we have just realized that the Russians have put into effect, strangely enough, a civil defense capability for their country? In other words, they've just spent an awful lot of money. This is what happened recently. We found out that they spent an awful lot of their budget, their military budget, on their civil defense
Which is
plans,
the shovel,
right?
which is the shovel plan.
The question is that if we ever found out this fact, how do we know how much they're spending on what? How do we know what the value of what they're spending is for? In other words, do they get the same value per dollar that we get for our dollar? Can they build for $2 billion what we can build for $2 billion.
But nothing will save you, Judd. That's the thing.
No,
Russian flesh burns
know
at the
that.
same temperature as American flesh.
But we believe that that's what they think. We believe that they think
we
that,
know
that
they
can
don't.
survive a
Because
nuclear
they've got
holocaust.
their doctors going on national Soviet TV telling the Russian people just what I told the American people.
Why don't they
That is
come
actually
here?
happening?
Why don't
They are coming
They are.
here.
They have been here
Well, that's
2
what we
weeks ago.
need.
Yeah.
There's part of the solution. I mean, if we're going to turn around a whole thinking about whether we can win a war.
Well, that is the next step. The next step is for the
the
two
Pentagon thinks that the war-
superpowers to, as we are now, we're like mutual Siamese twins. If one of us decides to destroy the other, both of us go.
In about an hour.
In
That's
about
how
an
long it
hour.
takes.
So
an hour by the...
the only way either of us will survive is to learn to cooperate. We may hate each other's guts, but in order to survive, in order for our self-interest to survive, we've got to cooperate. And in order to cooperate, we have to have an exchange, beginning with the scientists and doctors, as they're the ones who have the most credibility about the facts. And
I do-
More on the nuclear, excuse me,
Okay.
more on the nuclear freeze issue right after this.